Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. However brief, I would like to introduce myself. My name is James Willis Fisher, and these my esteemed colleagues, Mika Mackay and Benedict Hoffman. We present to you our subject, the philosophical question, is the pen mightier than the sword? Mika, our main speaker, will enlighten to you our opinions on this subject and the implementations that it has to the respects we've explored. Then Benedict, our proposer of the thanks, will reflect on parts of the main presentation and express his appreciation of Mika's wonderful speech. I do hope that you find this a most entertaining and informative experience, as we believe it is a subject worth exploring for the good of mankind, looking at whether or not we should pursue conflict in a more peaceful way, or whether or not hostility is the way to progress in the world. And now may I ask our main speaker to begin, Mika.
Thank you very much, James, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, Blank audience, assembled Miltonians, chair, staff members of both institutions. Today, as my colleague has said, I will address the widely debated topic of the pen is mightier than the sword. To begin with, I would like to define what is meant by the pen and what is meant by the sword. When we think of the pen, we normally think of that tool most commonly used for writing. However, in this speech, I would like to address the pen as an object of symbolic work, standing for language as a whole, including the spoken word. It may also stand for literature, the texts of past and modern day society, what is written, what has been written, and what will be written. The sword, on the other hand, an instrument of war, has connotations regarding hostile actions, bloodshed, instigations, the list goes on. I will thereby define it not only as a weapon, but as hostile actions in general, and the effects of those hostile actions afterwards. My colleagues and I are firm believers that the pen is mightier than the sword. We feel that writing and language in itself can be as powerful as the most violent of actions, if not more powerful. Did Voltaire not once say, "To hold a pen is to be at war"? The great philosopher and historian wielded the pen's power firsthand through his outspoken teachings and writings on subjects like religious freedom and religious tolerance. In a more recent example, Martin Luther King also opposed the sword. He used language, non-violent action, and the pure power of speech to gather his audiences, put flame to that small candle of hope that burnt inside all those who were denied certain rights because of their race. He once said, "Let us not satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred." Mr. King himself recognized that hostile actions would not help him. It would not get him anywhere in his campaign to help others who needed the same assistance. Yes, the power of language would do that, of words and sentences. They would unite a nation. Not the sound of a gun or the sound of men scuffling in the streets. No. History is filled with these icons, harnessing the power of speech, of language to bring together groups of people or even bring down a corrupt system. Nelson Mandela, Oscar Romero, it goes on. Even today, I'm using the pure power of speech to address all of you. I'm using language. I'm using the spoken word. As well as bringing people together for a common cause and furthering the dreams and aspirations of people. Pen can also destroy lives, bring a person or even a country, a nation, to its knees. You see the newspaper headlines, fairly recent ones being about how a nurse gave private information on Kate Middleton to the host of an Australian show. We read about this, it causes a lot of discussion. Some ask, was it her fault? Others say it was her fault. The media influences it, of course. It gets all out of hand. We all see the headlines. we all read the story. We discuss what the hospital will do to her. Will they discipline her? Will they not? We never know that the next week that the headline will be, she's dead, suicide. The use of written words and the spread of information through language, through writing, through the pen. All the unwanted attention the words cause. A woman dead because of what people have said, what the newspapers have implied. A life destroyed by the pen. In no way am I glorifying the actions or the effects of the pen. In this case, I'm merely raising the point that many people may say that the sword's capability, or even war's capability, is far greater than the pen because of what it can do to humans, of the physical injury it may inflict upon them. I think that the story shows how the pen has equal potential to destroy lives, however in a rather complicated way. I ask you all now to take a moment just to think about a time when somebody has said something to you or to you, maybe written something about you that has hurt you in such a profound way. We've all had a time similar to this, when the power of words, the power of the pen has hurt us in some way. I have once felt the power of language as well. My colleagues and I all agree that the pen is mightier than the sword. Language and literature are powerful. The pen is powerful. I've seen this, and I hope you can now see this too. So I ask you once more, which is the mightier, the pen or the sword? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mika. Now, are there questions from the floor?
Well, thank you, Mika. The examples that you used come from what we will probably describe today as civilized countries. But if you just take the current issues that are in the newspapers and on television today, we're probably focusing on what we would say to be backward nations. Do you think that your thesis can be justified across both civilized and backward nations?
I think it can definitely be kind of related to both civilized and backwards nations. I think the pen has a very powerful presence in society today, and it can definitely be kind of adapted to different scenarios. I feel that definitely words have kind of that effect on both backwards and civilized nations. It can have kind of that knock-on effect in society, and we never know what it can cause completely. Even today, we might be feeling the last few effects of the pen. So I definitely think it can be kind of compared to both the different kinds of civilized or backwards nations, as you say. And I definitely think that the pen is a terrific instrument. It has so much power. So to any situation, I feel all its kind of effects, its connotations can be applied. So yes.
Thank you, Mika. Ben.
I'd first like to thank the Rotary Club and all of you for taking the time out of your schedules to be here today, and to the Rotary Club for organising this wonderful event. I'm sure I can agree with my colleague that we are truly honoured to be part of this competition. So, the pen can destroy a country, but the sword can only merely cut it. I would rather stare down the shaft of a blade than that of a pen. As my colleague mentioned earlier, Voltaire said to hold a pen is to be at war. Doesn't this show the pen to be stronger? Some of the greatest men we have ever known have favoured the pen over the sword. Martin Luther King Jr., Oscar Romero, and Nelson Mandela as a few examples. The power of the pen has even driven some people to suicide. The nurse from London, which was a very tragic event. This is more than I've ever seen necessarily from the sword. Yes, the sword has had an impact on the human race. However, the pen has affected us in a much larger way, with books, literature, and even the start of wars. So, in conclusion, The pen is an extremely powerful and beneficial aspect to humans. We build the very foundations of us on what we have written, not on conflicts. We learn from the pen and reiterate it over and over. So which one sounds stronger to you? A pen capable of 1,000 acts, or a sharp bit of metal? Thank you.